complication. I'm a simple man, don't wanna complication. Complication.
Wow, welcome. We're live with the Young Jurks. My name is Mike Crawford. Very exciting show. We got a studio audience over here. We're at Down the Road Beer Company. We got a great guest here. We got a lot of loud things. Are your headphones loud enough? Is that you
They
looking?
were too loud.
They were too loud. All
I
right.
put them back a little bit.
Well, that's okay. These
No,
guys are
they're
gonna
okay.
freak. My guys will freak out if they'll try to fix anything for you. Like right now, because you heard that voice. If you heard that voice, you already know who it is. You're probably looking at the camera too, but I don't know what's on the camera. But we have a special guest here. But first of all, we have Andrew Money from Beantown, Greentown.
Right.
And we have his good friend,
Barney Frank.
Congressman Barney Frank.
Hi.
And you also were at the State House at one point, right?
I was a state representative from downtown Boston during the 70s. I got elected in 72. I served through 1980. So that was 8 years.
And then you became a congressman from
And then
there.
in 80, I got elected to the U.S. House and did 32 years. So it was 40 years.
32
in all.
years in
Yeah,
Congress.
40 years in all.
So you probably saw a lot in 40 years between the State House and Congress, I imagine, from the 70s until when?
Yeah, and
2001?
actually, 2013, January, but I actually started in 68 working for the mayor of Boston. So I had
Kevin
city.
White, was it?
Yeah, Kevin White for 3 years. So it's a little over 50 years that I started.
And now, I mean, I'm like speechless that you're here. I interviewed you way back, and I asked you about it, and you're like, you didn't remember. I didn't expect you to, but it was a phone call. And this time you're here. Like, I can't believe it. Like, we have you live in studio. You came down from Maine. Your husband Jim's here too, right?
Yes.
And you're here for cannabis for Andrew. You're working with Andrew. I read about in the Boston Globe. Tell us what's going on and why you're here today.
Well, yes, it's true. Actually, Andrew is an old family friend of my husband's and my husband's brother, and they were involved in various kind of sports activities together. But he approached us. Well, actually, we talked about marijuana because it's been a subject I've worked on, as
Forever.
I said, since 1972. At the state level, I filed a bill in 1972 to legalize marijuana in Massachusetts. About 10 years ago, no, maybe a dozen or more years ago, I worked with Ron Paul, the Republican Libertarian, and we introduced, I think, the first national legislation to, we did two bills. One, which is just to remove any legal prohibition. The second, which I think now has a real chance at some point in the near future, would allow states to make up their own minds. And we say to a lot of the conservatives, you guys are for states' rights. How about on this as well? But then Andrew and I talked to Jim about my joining in the effort, and I figured, well, I've been pushing this for 45 years. It's time to get real about it, and I did it as a public sector official, and now I'm glad to help what I think is a very good operation to make sure that when we sell it, we do it in the right way, that local people are involved, and that this carries out the goal I had in 1972.
Now, it's funny because I have a lot of politicians on the show. Our show is mostly political community affairs, but we've been on the cannabis trail. I've been a medical patient. I'm an athlete forever as well. Not as long as you have been on the cannabis trail, but a lot of times now we're seeing politicians get involved in the cannabis industry and people get mad at them. And they're friends of ours and they've been advocates even at times. But this is a lot different. This is like some of the same people who I think we get mad aren't getting mad because they're seeing what this is really about. I saw in the paper that you were getting 1% of this company, and that's what
Yes.
you're doing it for. You're basically doing this for love of Andrew
No,
and
I'm
the cause,
gonna,
right? What is
I
it?
hope to make some money if it happens. I'm not in office anymore. I want to try and so that Jim and I can live reasonably. But in terms of people getting mad, I guess it's not their fault, but I was legally advocating the legalization of marijuana before most of them were born. So I don't really think that...
Before, no, actually, I was one then. I think,
all right,
yeah, right? Yeah.
No, I understand, frankly.
pretty much.
Jim has also expressed a kind of frustration with John Boehner. I served in Congress with John Boehner, and when I was pushing for the legalization of marijuana or for states' right to deal with it, John Boehner was blocking it. So, yeah, I think there's some reasonable criticism for people who were against it when they had the power over it, but now that it's become legal over their objection, they're trying to cash in on it. I think that's a legitimate criticism.
I think you're right. I think that's a good difference to make, too. Like, what were you doing before? Like, it does make a difference, to me anyways.
Yeah, I think it's just hypocritical presumably you were opposed to making it legal like John Boehner was because you think it's harmful. I mean, otherwise you don't interfere with people's liberty. Well, if you thought it was harmful, the fact that it's now been made legal shouldn't change your view about whether or not it's harmful. And so apparently they said, no, we're not going to make it legal because it's a bad thing, but as long as it's legal, we'll make money off this bad thing. And I think that's total hypocrisy.
Excellent. I agree. We also, Andrew, right now, you have you brought something for us. But before you tell us about that, tell us about what you guys are doing, Beantown, Greentown. Tell us, I mean, you guys met, you decided to work together. What's the plan? You've kind of told us before in the past being on the show, but with Barney as well, I'd like to just kind of let the audience know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we're Beantown Greentown's basically an advocacy group. So what we do is a lot of outreach to try to break down the stigma of the plant, and we do fun things like roll 100-foot joints, and then we wrap them in gold and roll them again. And we're throwing a huge 420 party where we're going to advocate for how safe marijuana is to be able to smoke it for 24 hours nonstop. And we have a couple people that have thrown their hat into the ring to be able to do that. They're going to stay awake for that time and do it. So we were also thinking about ways to kind of poke fun at it and see if we could get a drunk guy to drink for 24 hours to see if there was a difference. Do you know what I mean?
I got a suggestion, Charlie Baker.
Yeah, sure. He likes
did you hear
his
about my
booze.
challenge?
He likes his booze, so
Yeah.
sure, yeah. He could.
I
he could
challenged
go
him
for
to the
that.
joint versus beer challenge,
Yeah.
and it went viral. That was like 3 years ago. It was one thing we ever did that went viral for some reason. And
Let's bring it back.
He would never do it. Like I said, I'll drink.
Well, I'll
I'll
tell
smoke
you
a joint
somebody
for every
I
beer you
bet
drink.
I think would do it, and that's Bill Weld.
Oh, there you go.
Bill is a legitimate libertarian, and Bill's has a right to advocate because he was for legalizing it. Bill also
Drinks.
freely acknowledged his attachment to what he called a brown liquid. So I bet you Bill Weld would take that challenge.
There you go.
Hey, we're in a brewery, so there's nothing wrong with a little bit of beer every now and then.
Yeah, I like
You
the
know what
taste
I mean?
of it. I just couldn't do it for 24 hours like I could with cannabis.
No way. Yeah, and that's like what we're trying to establish. Like as an advocacy group, we go out there and we push the limits, and we talk about how this plant should be normalized, because right now it's just demonized, and if we can flip that and make people aware of that, that it's not as bad as people think, then that's a great point.
And the double standard there, you're right to want to expose it. I just had an example of an old friend of mine who's a very thoughtful guy, and he said he'd read about my affiliation with marijuana, and he wanted me to know his position was that no, people shouldn't be criminally treated because of it. But on the other hand, he didn't want to see it advocated. He didn't want to see people out there pushing it. He wanted to kind of keep it sub rosa. And after we argued about that for a while, then he said he had another thing he wanted to talk to me about. Did I want to invest? Ultimately, he asked me in the brew pub he was starting. And I had to say to him, wait a minute. In fact, right now, you've got much more damage being done because people have drunk too much beer and then smoked too much weed. and you're telling me that you don't think anybody should be out there trying to sell marijuana. But what is a brew pub? It's the kind of have the cachet of fashionableness. So I think it's entirely legitimate to do that. And I've always said, and I've talked to friends who are police officers, if you tell a cop that there's a bunch of 20-year-olds making, or 25-year-olds guys causing a little bit of a disturbance late at night in a residential neighborhood, his reaction is going to, I think, differ. If he's told they've been drinking, he's going to have his hand on his baton. If he's told they were smoking dope, he's probably just going to bring some snacks. I mean, every police officer I've
Some
talked to
jokes.
said, you clearly have a much greater problem with people who've drunk too much and people who smoke whatever too much would be.
No doubt about it. I mean, even people who work in the restaurant industry or any industry, that when you're in the public, the guy who smokes weed, he's not going to give you a hard time like someone who's drunk.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just reality. If we are giving away tickets, we have New England Cannabis. We have a phone call right now. We'll take the call. Before I even give out the number, we have a call. We'll take the call. We're giving away tickets to the New England Cannabis Convention at Heinz Convention Center next week.
Oh, yeah.
And we also have Barney Frank here. So if you have a question, call in. Who's on the phone?
Melissa?
Hi, Melissa. You have a question for Barney Frank or Andrew?
Hold on a sec.
They don't see. We don't screen calls, and sometimes this
Hello?
catches people off the air. Hi, who's on the phone?
That was my wife. I was trying to get your number off the internet when she called it. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
See,
I'm Derek.
you're Derek. Okay, and do you have a question for our guest, Andrew and Congressman Barney Frank?
Yeah, I was wondering. We're doing a special event here in Vermont to raise money for the vets that get cannabis medical, and we were wondering maybe he would be a speaker.
Sure. Let me give you my email
It's
address.
something we hold dear up here.
When is the event?
It's June 22nd.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'll give you my email address, and you email me the details, and if I'm free, I'll try to do it.
We would really appreciate it. It would
All right,
mean a lot.
the email is J as in Jim, R as in Reddy, B as in Barney, F as in Frank, 1005 at gmail.com.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
hopefully I get to win a set of tickets.
Do you want in on the set of tickets?
I would love to be on a set of tickets because I'm just learning how to do fundraisers and cups up here. So
Are you a vet? Are you a veteran yourself?
No, I am not, sir. But I will do anything I can to help.
Well,
with
good
that.
for you.
have
I
vets in my
appreciate
family.
it. Good for you.
But the problem here in Vermont is they don't recognize medical in the low-income buildings, and we have a lot of vets.
Yes, I agree.
won't-
In fact, that was one of the
Right,
issues
and
that's
we-
come up about whether or not there should be places where marijuana is legal, where people can go to enjoy it, because many of them will be living in residences where they're not allowed to smoke it. And yeah, people like that should have
that's
some.
what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise money to buy a piece of property.
Well, I also
here
will
in
tell you
Vermont.
this. What I'm hoping, I'm working with a lot of my former colleagues, because when I was in Congress, I did a lot to try to make things legal. And there were a couple of members of Congress, in particular Congressman Perlmutter from Colorado, Congressman Blumenauer from Oregon, and they're working very hard to change the law at the federal level. One thing that I think is going to happen, people would be interested to know, is that I think by next year, this problem of banks refusing to accept funds for marijuana businesses will be over. I believe Congress is going to pass a law making it very clear that this business of marijuana, where it's legal, should not be in any way obstructed from being able to use banking services. But I think that the question of, particularly in federal housing, the prohibition again on a legal substance should not exist.
Well, that's what we have here in Vermont. At the Zach House, and the one vet that I help, before federal brought the building over, we have a vet there that's in a wheelchair, and he has a written agreement from the old owners that in winter, because he's in a wheelchair, that
All right.
he
Well,
can smoke in the bathroom.
thank you. If you send me your information, I'll try to make it.
Yes. Thank you. And your name again?
Derek.
Derek.
Derek, you got it.
Vandenberg.
Barney's could be a great host, right? You are a host. You could run this whole show right now.
No,
He's
I-
running the show. I love it, and he's not even trying. He's being very nice to me.
I did in the 70s.
You're awesome. Yeah, did you host?
I
shows?
did. I did the Saturday night 8 to midnight shift on WBZ talk show.
No way.
In the late 70s.
That's I mean, WBZ is #1 talk nights. I mean, that's Bradley J.
I came
now.
in, I think, just before Larry Glick. Who
Oh, I know Larry
who's a
Glick.
Great, yeah.
Holy crap! I didn't even know you did that. I would.
I wasn't even born.
Listen,
I will tell you,
this is
if
my.
there's somebody-
I'm geeking out right now because I
Well,
listen
if
to
you know-
WBZ at night, like all
From,
the time.
from the old times, one of our fellow residents of Ogunquit, where Jim and I live, is Woo Woo Ginsburg. I don't
Oh
know
my
if you
God,
remember
yeah.
Woo Woo,
Oh, yeah,
but he's
I know
up
the
there
name.
in Ogunquit.
I wish they would get rid of Dan Ray and replace. Could we get you down here doing WBZ at nights, 8 to midnight? Replace the voice of reason.
I am not that patient.
This is unbelievable. Barney Franks live in studio. Derek's in the running for tickets. We also had some other calls. We'll take calls too. 502. You got the number 501-3477. We're the Young Jurks. What do you got over here? You got some gold thing going on. What is that?
Well, at the Harvest Cup this year in Worcester, we rolled a joint that was 119 feet, 6 inches long. And what I'm doing as a promotional item is I'm giving away these little 3-inch sections of it. So this is a stubby.
Oh, wow.
And this is actual 24 karat gold rolling paper.
You could smoke that? Like a
Yeah, you
gold
could-
rolling paper?
Yeah, you could smoke this if you wanted to.
They wanted you to hold it up in front of the camera.
Yeah, so this is, it comes in this cool vial. This company called Contempo Packaging reached out to us and they said, hey, we're gonna make these for you. And we wanted to be able to give them away to people that come to our 420 party. So on 420 this year for the 24-hour smoke-a-thon, we're giving away these to every ticket holder for a certain period of time until we run out. And the goal is to get your tickets now, and however the order is that you buy your tickets is based upon how many of these that we give away. So the capacity for the place is 720 people over the course of 24 hours. And we don't have 720 of these, but we got about...
Where is this party going to be?
This party's going to be at the Summit Lounge out in Worcester.
Oh, cool.
So basically the only place you can really go and have a social consumption right now.
And not be harassed.
Yeah, not be harassed. So, this party is going to go on for 24 hours. There's a party the night before that we're going to join up to, but, we just wanted to do something cool and, give a shout out to the people that have helped us get this far. So, we also have written on here something that says, if you have this product and you present it to us at a show, a store, an event where we're selling our products, we will hook you up.
Yeah.
So it's
a
strictly
golden ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It's strictly
It's a golden
a souvenir
joint.
purpose.
Yeah.
But if someone gets desperate, they could probably smoke it. But we're not going to do anything if they bring us the ash. You know what I mean?
Right. We have a phone call. We'll take. Who's on the phone?
Hi, it's Ray with Boston's Best Buds.
Ray.
Yep, Ray with Boston's Best Buds.
Boston. Oh yeah, I know you, Ray. What's you have a question for the congressman or Andrew Buddy from Greentown, Beantown?
Yeah, I was curious about with the congressman. I see how you guys are moving forward, and I'm happy to see you guys moving forward. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on delivery services and equity licensing and cost for startup. Like the dispensaries are good and everything, but the cost for startup seems to be very, very high.
Good question.
I'm going to defer to Andrew. I, in general, think, and that's one of the reasons I was glad to join Beantown, Greentown, that it should be a local event to a great extent. I had a friend, in fact, in Provincetown who was working hard to try and start a co-op for marijuana. And in fact, he said he had some people skeptical about the idea of co-op. I pointed out that one of the most successful and best-known businesses. So I am in general in favor of it. But as to the mechanics, that's not my area of expertise. It's more Andrew's, so I'll defer.
Yeah, in
Would
general.
you mind if I gave you a little bit of my history there, Mr. Frank?
No.
My name's Ray Cole. I had Boston's Best Buds. When medical marijuana passed a couple of years ago, they postponed it a year, and then the Department of Health gave licenses to a very small group of people who didn't open. It created a situation where there was a lot of patients, especially older patients, that had medical problems that really wanted to try marijuana for medical solutions, that had cards, had prescriptions, and had no way of getting it. We copied the West Coast delivery service model, where it was kind of like a cooperative where patients are growing product for other patients. Their excess goes to other patients. And also there's something with marijuana where you're not exactly sure how it's going to affect you until you try it. So you can read something, order seeds, start growing it, and then when it's finished, you might not even like it. So it created a situation where it was kind of like we were the hub for the community. We lobbied for years in the State House trying to get licenses passed. Delivery service licenses kept getting postponed. Recreational passed with delivery services licenses on the ballot. The draft regulations were there mentioning delivery services, but by the time they went to finalization, delivery services were no longer on the final regulations, and there was a letter passed around in the paper lobbying against delivery
Well,
services.
let me say at
Various
this
state
point,
officials.
I sympathize, but I'm not in a position to help. I am talking to members of Congress, but let me say what I should have said earlier about
I know
everybody.
you're out of office. It's just your opinion matters to me personally.
Yeah, all right, but
That's
my
why I'm
opinion
curious
is,
what you say.
my opinion is if you haven't called your state representative and state senator and had everybody else involved and say, this is unfair and change it, that's a mistake. And I would also say, everybody listening to us, I was at the convention last year, and I went to one of the tables, which was for advocacy, and I commented that I was disappointed there was no voter registration forms. I'll tell you this, if everybody who was in the Hines last year when I was there was an active voter, we'd probably be a lot further along. So anybody listening to this, the Massachusetts congressional delegation is very good on this issue, but people have a lot of demands on their time. If you care about this, write to your representative and your senators, and if they're right on the issue, thank them, and if they're not, yell at them, but in any case, tell them to give this a high priority. And for you, you got to take this up with your legislative representatives, and if they hear from enough people, I guarantee you it'll work.
I've been trying that particular thing for years. The problem I've been having is like that patient advocacy group you're talking about, Massachusetts Patient Advocacy Alliance. They get all their funding from the dispensary, so they tend to try to lock up the industry with, like, red tape
it's
and
just
neighbors.
unfortunately, I'm not involved in
Yeah,
any of
so-
the specifics,
No,
and
you're not
I mean,
involved. I'm just saying it's a political fight that's like way more new age and complicated than I thought
Yes,
it would
it is.
be.
Yeah, the fight's definitely political, and what you have to do is be able to stand up for yourself and be able to move the progress along. It's going to take money.
I
Like,
will
no
say
matter
that
what
you
it is,
talked
it's going
about
to
the
take money.
delay. I am disappointed in my former colleagues in Massachusetts and in Maine. It happened too. There's a lot of hypocrisy here too, where the people voted in many states for it, and some of the politicians dragged their feet. And I am very critical of the slow pace that the Massachusetts political establishment imposed on this, and similarly with the Maine establishment. We have a new governor in Maine now, Governor Mills, who is, unlike the previous governor, Paul LePage, listening to the people.
Thank you, Ray.
I feel like Maine has had a little bit of a friendlier relationship with caregivers and growers, though, in general, as opposed to Massachusetts, with more solid regulations and also knowing where people stand, knowing where you stand with the state, not
Well,
having
Maine,
ambiguous
of course,
regulations.
a long time
It's a
ago,
big deal.
Maine was part of Massachusetts, so maybe they're happy that they broke off.
There you go.
I
You
was
got
just
some
curious,
history
how
too,
did you
Ray.
get involved in the-
Ray, we got to move on.
on.
We got to move on.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you, Ray, for your call. We got other calls. Who's on the line next? No, we lost him.
Thanks, Ray.
Keep calling back. We hear the calls coming through. We'll take more calls with Congressman Barney Frank.
Yeah, Ray, if you're still listening, hit me up on Beantown Greentown on our Instagram page, and I'll help you out with some of the information, at least with delivery services and social consumption that I know. Either way, it's going to cost money, and it's a long haul, but be ready for it.
And you can help him out with some of that, because
Yeah,
I think that's
totally.
where Ray really wants to go.
Yeah. If he wants to go down the delivery road, then there's a lot of hurdles to get involved in. It's not just as easy as people think. They think that, I don't need a facility. I don't need a building. I can just do a delivery. But they're going to make it as hard as possible to get it going. You need a truck that has 3 points of video recording all the time, 2 people in the car. limited access to where you can go and when you can go and all that stuff. So there's a lot of information that needs to get sussed out.
So we got a phone number, 502-501-3477 is our phone number. We got a caller on the line. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is Rick from Dedham.
What's up, Rick? You got a question for Congressman Frank or Andrew? Andrew, you know this guy?
Just a comment. Yeah, absolutely. From the bottom of Beantown, Greentown's heart, we want to thank Dag, Frank, and Andrew Muddy for all their hard work in this small business venture that they're doing here.
Barney, they call you Dank Frank these days.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, Jim explained to me what that meant.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's all good.
Sometimes you're out of the loop culturally, and you have to have someone explain it to me. The last time I was involved in that, I was the explainer. I was explaining to a female member of Congress what the implications were of Senator Rubio saying that Donald Trump had small hands.
yeah, no, you guys, we just want to thank you for joining the team,
Right on.
Thank you.
That's Sticky Icky on the line right there.
That is Sticky Icky.
Dr. Sticky Icky, thanks for calling in, buddy.
You got me, guys. Thanks. Great show, fellas.
Yeah, we got a tight network of Beantown, Greentown.
You got good nicknames
people
too
out there. Oh yeah,
Sticky Icky.
Well, we try to keep it relevant, Ricky is Sticky Icky, and he
That's
gets his
easy to
hands
remember.
dirty all the time, and sometimes they get sticky. So you got to be able to stand up and fight through it every time of the day. So
With the Young Jurks, we're giving away tickets too. We had a couple calls. We had Derek call. I forgot the second caller's name.
Ray.
Ray.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray. Which do you guys like any? And then Sticky Icky. He's probably already going, right?
yeah, well, we got Sticky Icky, we got Dr. Fire, who's our main grower. It's Keith, and he's amazing at what he does. So he grows pure fire. Some of that stuff I gave you earlier, so you can smoke up there. That's his goods. And I'm Dr. Kind because I do most of the communication and talking to people, and kind of keeping my neck out there for the whole group. We got a Dr. Smokey, we got a Dr. Sparky who handles all of our electrical. We got a Dr. Green Thumb. He's a really good grower on our team too. So we got all these different dudes, and we don't consider ourselves doctors by any way. We consider ourselves like weird scientists in a way. So trying to have fun with it.
My old habits of being in office, defending against any potential attack. Nobody is representing that any of these people are medical doctors. No one. People should be very clear. Doctor is a kind of a nickname, but they're not medical
MDs.
doctors. They're not licensed
No, we're not.
physicians.
We're not physicians at all.
Not before the Board of Registration in Medicine in Massachusetts.
We're like Dr. Spock, or
Yeah.
the doctor from Back to the Future guy with the crazy hair, like rah.
Well,
That's
Spock
right.
was
Getting after it.
Spock was a pediatrician.
He was. Dr. Spock was.
Yeah, flying on a spaceship. So, like, what
Well,
does that
Vulcan.
mean?
So we're the Young Jurks, and we're giving away tickets to New England Cannabis Convention. What do you think so far? I think, is there one caller you want to give the tickets to so far, or not? Or we don't care?
Well, yeah, well, Sticky Icky's already got
That's
tickets
when he's
because he's
already
working
going.
the show.
Yeah, he's
so,
working with you.
it's between Ray and the first guy. So, Ray or Derek.
We'll give them. How about we just give them both? I think we can do that. Unless we get a better call that knocks them both out.
Yeah, maybe, no worries. But we could also give away tickets to our 420 party because
Yeah, you got
those are
tickets
coming away in two-hour blocks. So our most popular hour right now is 420, and we actually just had a group that wanted to come to the 420 in the morning party. So it's for anybody,
It's going to be
any time of day.
24 hours at the Summer Lounge.
Oh, literally, yeah.
That's
At
gonna be crazy.
11:59 the night before, we're gonna spark our first joint.
That's crazy.
So
I'll you know what I'll be doing? Working all day, walking dogs like I always do.
Yay.
I got to make that money.
Hey, dogs need to get walked all day too.
Oh, that's what I do. I got sparked after. Who's on the? We got another phone call. Who's this?
Hey, Mike, it's Grant. How are you doing?
Hello, Grant.
I do not need tickets, obviously.
You won last. You won them last week from us.
Yeah, I was going to say, that is not why I'm calling, but I did want to thank you for hosting that contest, and I hope you do pick a winner. I also wanted to thank Andrew for his amazing comments at the CCC hearing. I was able to hear those in person.
Thank you, brother.
And I thought they were excellent.
Thank you.
I did have a question for Congressman Frank, though, in particular
more of a federal level question.
Sure.
So Cory Gardner, the Republican senator from Colorado, and Senator Warren from Massachusetts have proposed a bill that would kind of expand access to banking services for cannabis companies. What do you think about that bill? Do you think it will pass? And
Yes, I do. Actually, the main energy for that bill, and you're right, they have sponsored it in the Senate, and Senator Gardner is actually a key there because he is the Republican up for re-election next year, who is there are two who are seen to be somewhat vulnerable, Senator Collins from Maine and him, and the point is this: the House is going to do it. The lead guy in the House doing this is Congressman Ed Perlmutter from suburban Denver, who's on the committee that governs banks. And I know he's an old friend, and yes, the House is going to pass that bill without question, giving full access to banking services in states where it's legal. The question then will be in the Senate, where the Republicans, and I wish things weren't partisan, but on marijuana, the Democrats have been much more supportive, although it's not as bad a divide as on some others. Cory Gardner, as a Republican who's vulnerable, is going to be lobbying his fellow Republicans to do this. We also have, on a related issue, as many know who follow this closely, hemp has been made fully legal, and that happened largely because it's a big crop in Kentucky, and the most important senator is the Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. But what you have is, I can guarantee you that bill's going to pass the House. It is very likely to pass the Senate. Trump has even said he's not too upset about it. Every Democratic candidate for president is supportive. So I think it is overwhelmingly likely that by next year, the middle of next year, the banking services will be fully open to people in Massachusetts or other states where marijuana is legal.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, we need that support.
What do you think, Grant?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that insight about McConnell is fascinating because I think, as you know, Congressman Frank, McConnell can pretty much, unless it's a privileged resolution, control what gets a vote on the floor. So if he can be pressured and that support of hemp is a good sign, perhaps it will pass the Senate indeed.
Yeah, and the pressure is going to come in part from Republican senators. Both Senator Collins and Senator Gardner represent states where it's legal. But by the way, one of the allies on this is the banking industry. You know, banks want to do business, and they don't like being caught in the middle. And so that's also helping. I believe if the House passes, when the House passes this bill, by the way, the committee in the House that has jurisdiction, Financial Services, chaired by a great advocate, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and Ed Perlmutter's on that committee. The first congressional hearing that committee held this year was on this question of allowing banks to do marijuana business. So I'm pretty confident
that's a
on
good
that.
sign then.
Very good
doing
sign.
it first is
Yeah,
good.
talking about making things a priority, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. We're so lucky to have you here. So do you still talk to like a lot of the reps that are in?
Oh, yeah,
do
I
they
do.
counsel them on some of these things?
I do. I very consciously decided not to be a lobbyist, so I don't advocate on behalf of any other business. I am able legally to advocate on behalf of my own interests. So, yes, I'm a stockholder in Beantown, Greentown, and I can talk about that. But yeah, I've been working with people on marijuana for a long time. As a matter of fact, when I retired, President Obama very graciously invited me and Jim to lunch in the private part of the Oval Office. And one of the subjects we raised with him at the time, this was in 2012 when I'd announced my retirement, was the importance of being supportive of allowing states to have their way in marijuana. But yeah, I talked to them a lot, and in particular, Congressman Perlmutter and Congressman Blumenauer from Portland, Oregon, who are the two leaders on this, and I've talked to Congresswoman Waters about it.
Do you think President Obama did enough on it, or do you think he's like?
No, he was late to it. Eric Holder dragged his feet. In the end, he was better. Part of the problem I found, even, look, I was disappointed that a woman I support generally very much, Maura Healey, our Attorney General in Massachusetts, was against making it legal. Janet Mills, now the governor of Maine, was reluctant. Some law enforcement people just had this kind of knee-jerk reaction against it. But I'll tell you what, I make an analogy, and I'm very optimistic about the future of legalization. The analogy is with same-sex marriage. In both cases, same-sex marriage and smoking marijuana, there are people who are opposed to it because it violates their personal sense of morality. But they understand that in this country, telling people they shouldn't do something because you don't want them to isn't good enough. So they invent negative social consequences.
Yeah.
They say if you have same-sex marriage, that'll destabilize heterosexual marriages, never explaining how. They say that if people can smoke marijuana, there will all of these horrors. What happens is this. You get a breakthrough. You got a breakthrough in Massachusetts on same-sex marriage. You got a breakthrough in Colorado and Washington in marijuana. And what then happens is it turns out, no, there are no such negative consequences. Not that nothing ever goes wrong, but that the overwhelming response is a responsible one. And that's, as that becomes clearer, and that's happening, it happened with same-sex marriage, and it's happening with marijuana. There's a snowball effect. It becomes harder and harder for people to scare people with these myths when there is a reality that counteracts it.
Amazing. I'm so happy that you're here today. I really am. It's just, this is a great day for us. The Young Jurks, we're here every Saturday at 6 p.m. And we have, if you should know the voice. I mean, I hear that voice for 1 second. I could recognize it anywhere. Barney Frank, for all the times you were on Bill Maher's show.
Well, yeah, actually, I learned early that I should not make anonymous phone calls.
Anonymous calls? What do you mean?
I should not try to make anonymous phone calls.
Just because people know your voice.
Know the voice.
Like even when the telemarketers call, whatever.
Well, what
they
happens
know.
actually, the most, Jim, when I get in cabs in Washington and to some extent New York, I've been out of office for a while and I grew a beard and I'm generally not recognized visually, but much of the time when I say where I want to go, they say, oh, we know who you are. Because cab drivers, actually, it's very interesting. A lot of the cab drivers are immigrants. If the average American citizen was as well informed as these immigrant cab drivers,
Right.
we'd have a much better country. And they listen to the radio all day. You know, they're driving around. What do they got to do? And they listen to the radio. And so I always get recognized in cabs. I mean, I guess I would tip well anyway, but just make sure that I do.
I'm sure. Our phone number, if you want to call in too, is 502-501-3477. We're the Young Jurks. We also want to mention we have a big party coming up April 27th. It's our 5-year anniversary party. I can't believe we made it this far. It's at Down the Road Beer Company. We kind of did it today. Bonnie Frank brought the audience. We didn't plan this. People just kind of showed up today, which was awesome and amazing. But we're going to be doing it officially April 27th, so you can come down to that. We'll be giving tickets away on upcoming shows as well. But we're really excited that Barney Frank is here today. I don't know. When did you guys tell us? Because you guys are going to try to also open a dispensary too. You're an applicant, right?
Yeah.
Andrew?
Well, I told you a little bit about Beantown, Greentown being an
Yes.
advocacy group, but our whole initiative is to be able to sell our flower because we're growers, cultivators at heart, and what we love to do is take the plant to the next level. So our goal isn't to open a dispensary, but we want to open a micro business here in Massachusetts. So our business name, technically, if you look at the list of applicants right now, it's called 420 Industries. And we want to provide flower, pre-rolls, concentrate products, and everything to be able to sell them to other dispensaries. So like Caroline's Cannabis, who just opened, thank God, awesome for that, like mom and pop shops. We want to be able to give our mom and pop business to those types of businesses themselves. So there's going to be lots of big business that wants to have some of our select flower and whatever way we sell it. Yeah. But, we have the ability to be able to control who we sell to. So our goal right now is to sign up all of our letters of intent with all these different small businesses and show that as effort to the Cannabis Control Commission to say, these are the people we want to do business with. So one of the topics I brought up in the speech I gave in front of the Cannabis Control Commission was that they have a restriction right now on how much cannabis I can buy to process or do whatever in my business as a small business. And they say you can only buy 2,000 pounds of marijuana, but it's very arbitrary and there's no specific information. It just says cannabis. So, I pushed them and I said, what does that mean?
Could be oil.
Well, I want it to be oil, I'm a small business. I need as much opportunity as I can get to stand up against the big guys. So let me buy oil, let me buy cannabis, let me buy edibles, let me help the other suppliers in the area that are also micro businesses that are producing these products. Because if you don't, what you're going to do is you're going to create barriers even between small business, and don't do that, because that's going to hurt small business altogether. So collaboration is going to be key for all of us to survive. So we don't have the square footage, we don't have the big fancy retail stores, we don't have what these big money people have, but we have a lot of heart, and we have a lot of craft. We have the ability to be able to do things that they can't. So we're going to do some of those things and push them well, and try to do the best that we can, and that's all we can really do. So.
And you also have Bonnie Frank sitting next to you, which really I think
definitely,
got to help a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're local, and you're open in Lowell. Is that where you're trying?
We have a host community agreement in Lowell right now with the city. The city likes us. We like them. We have a great relationship. We're working hard to get our site plan review done. There's a couple of little nitpicky things on the list there that we got to get finished. But Lowell's where we want to be. I live in the North Shore. I'm in Haverhill. And most of my business partners are kind of down in the Dedham area, so it's a little more of a trek for them, but I'm going to be centrally located there. And Lowell's the 4th largest metropolitan in Massachusetts, so when we found that location, we really fell in love with it. And especially with the delivery option that the CCC is putting in front of us, that we may have the ability to be some of the first deliveries as small business, which is amazing, because Ms. Title has really come on our side and said, listen, let's give this opportunity to the small businesses. So the hard thing is there's 7 micro business licenses on a list of 200 and something right now, and for us to just be waddling in there, it's we're at the bottom of the puddle, and we really need to be lifted up and shown that if Massachusetts is going to do this right, like Mr. Hoffman said, we want to be able to be those people with the opportunity. So we have our ducks in our row. We've been doing the legwork. We've been paying what we need to pay to get there. So just don't bleed us dry. Do
you think they heard that that's hearing?
I hope so. It's I was the second person to speak. I was there early. I wanted them to take something away with them. I would have given them all a T-shirt, but
what I love too is the globe thing. It just showed the picture of you with the
more weed, less greed T-shirt.
Yeah. I take some. The Globe's a very influential institution in Massachusetts. The fact that they used Andrew's picture and quoted his testimony, although I was in my edition, the 3rd line of the photo caption was missing. Maybe that's only there, but the fact that the Globe gave such prominence to Andrew and his argument encourages me to think, and I think it will have the people in charge think that, the Globe thinks this is a pretty good idea. That was a kind of an implicit endorsement, I believe.
The picture too. The picture was just that's the first thing you see online when you see it is the picture of your shirt, and I love the message on it.
Yeah. So we made those T-shirts a year ago, and we've been promoting the message ever since we've started as a business. We've given away 10,000 stickers. So, and look at this. We're changing up our image a little bit. We got Barney this beautiful shirt, Beantown, Greentown, and we got the more weed, less greed stamp on the side, right? So as immature of a business as we are, we've come from the advocacy side, so we're just a bunch of hardcore pot smokers. But in the essence of it, we want to be business people, and we want to change our views on it. We're not just going to sit around and take it now. We're going to stand up. We're going to put on collared shirts when we need to. We're going to dress appropriately when we need to, and we're going to say the things that need to be said on behalf of our business. So. And I'm grateful for this man for joining our team. So, I've known him forever. And as I started this business, he was the last person I thought would get involved. But at the end of the day, he's the first person to support us, really. And that means so much because, having that support and the political figurehead that he is to be able to move things forward is great, Yeah,
no, I don't want to misrepresent what Andrew said, hardcore pot smokers. I'm not a hardcore pot smoker. On the other hand, people said, well, if you're an advocate, that must mean, you're a supporter. Well, I'm in favor of legal abortion, so I think there's a pretty clear precedent for my advocating the right of other people to do things that you picks and choose. But for me, this is a chance to give some reality to the advocacy. And I thought this was a good idea, and now the question is, okay, the idea that they've sort of taken you at your word in Massachusetts, it's now something you said they should do and they're doing it. I want to participate in seeing that it's done right.
Awesome. I can't thank you both so much for coming in today and setting this up and doing this for us. Disrupt Boston, we're really happy. Young Jurks. Anything else you guys want to get out, and especially Brownie Frank? You have anything?
No, I just again urge people, write to members of Congress in Massachusetts. You write to your representative and say, thank you for supporting this. Please make sure it's a priority. Similarly to, actually, Senator Warren has kind of led the way among national presidential candidates in being an advocate, and others, every Democratic candidate has taken that same position. And
Do you like her? That was one of the questions I had on my list, and I lost my list. So, presidential candidates, do you like
I'm
her?
not
Who are the ones you like?
Here's the deal. The differences among them are minuscule compared to the differences between any of them and Donald Trump. I think beating Donald Trump is very important, and any Democratic candidate now would be so much better.
That's right.
That my focus is going to be to try to help the one that I think will wind up having the best chance. Elizabeth Warren and I consider a great friend. We work closely in the establishment of the Consumer Bureau. I have great respect for her abilities. But at this point, I'm for all of the above, and I want to help one of them. Whoever starts to emerge, I'm going to help that person win.
Awesome, great to hear. That's the way I feel. I mean, there's some I like more than others, but whoever it is, that's why I don't want to even talk about it or damage any of them. You don't know who it's going to be.
You're right.
Yeah, and I'm all for people getting out of the closet. Like, it's kind of a weird analogy because, whether it's the gay community or the cannabis community, we're all coming out of the closet now. And everybody's at that point where it's smoking weed, is a public thing. So, coming out and using cannabis and being at your events. And what's really important is these events that the CCC has and all these other local events that help support social equity and economic empowerments. People need to come out to these because the more they do, it shows the richness of the community.
And it shows, it helps as you see these people who from every walk of life who are successful in other ways. It refutes the notion that smoking somehow undermines you. I do have to get used to one thing. It's a generational thing. When Andrew talks about the CCP. CCP are the Cyrillic initials in Russian of the Communist Party of the Soviet. And I hear CCP and I keep thinking of Khrushchev.
CCC.
But
Three
CPP.
C's. CCC.
Oh, CCC.
Cannabis
okay.
Control Commission.
Commission. Oh, okay. Then I'm okay. I was hearing P.
What you're talking about, the CC, was it 3 C's? I think it was.
No, the Russians, it was CC. Yeah, 3 C's.
So it was 3 C's, too.
Is it?
Yeah.
The
But it had a
Union
P
of
at the
Soviet
end.
Socialist Republic.
Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's Russia.
Russia.
Same thing, really. We got a phone call. We'll take it real quick before we go, I think. Well, who's on the line? They're still there.
Hi, my name's Joanna. I'm calling from Weymouth. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
Good. Hey, Joanna.
Just calling. I wanted to ask Barney, do you feel like between your political role and your new role with Beantown, Greentown, that you can help stop some of the stigma in our state?
Yes, I do.
Around cannabis?
I do. And that's what we were actually just talking about. I think it's important, as Andrew said, for people to acknowledge that they enjoy recreational marijuana because it, as I said, refutes this notion that, they're potheads, they're not high functioning, they can't work hard. As a matter of fact, when I first decided I was going to fight for the legalization of marijuana, I figured I always want to get the other side's argument when I'm in any kind of controversy. So I read Richard Nixon's Commission on Marijuana back in the late 60s. People ought to get a copy of it. I forget the guy, I forget the name of the guy who was the chairman.
Was it the Schaefer report?
Yeah, Governor Schaefer, right. Governor of Pennsylvania. And I try to say, well, what are the arguments against it? And the only argument in the end, they had to acknowledge that most of the arguments didn't hold up. The only argument in the end was it would be bad for the economy if we made it legal because people would smoke pot and not work hard. I mean, literally, I urge people, I'm not making this up.
Which is so weird.
Go
Because
read
I
it.
work harder so I can afford my pot. Like, I mean, come on.
But
That's a good point, too.
As I said, it's similar to the arguments about same-sex marriage. So, yeah, I hope I help show that it's a myth. But the best way for that is, people who use marijuana recreationally and are good at their work and good in their relationships, tell people. Don't hide it, because that will, and of course, make it legal helps you not have to hide it. because we should make it clear that you can't be fired for it, etc. So that is an important part of it, is to remove this entirely unjustified stigma.
Thank you. Do you want to go to the New England Cannabis Convention too?
I'd absolutely love to go.
Send us a message on our Facebook page and just your name and your email address, and we'll hook it up. And any of the callers today, actually, we're gonna get
Give them all tickets.
Yeah, let's give them all tickets.
Right, yeah.
Anyone, but you
Yay.
have to send us a message with your name and your email address, and
Well,
you have to do that in the next 24 hours.
Seeing as though Joanna was the only
Absolutely.
female caller,
Thank you.
Yes.
why don't we
Yes.
give her one and for one of her buddies too?
What do you mean?
I'm sure she has a friend that she wants to take.
Oh,
no?
a +1?
Yeah.
I don't know. Then I think I'd have
Well,
to
I'll
talk
give her
to
one
you.
on my ticket
You
side
will?
then,
All
okay.
right. See, I don't know if we can swing. That's one I got to talk to the guys.
I have a couple extra on my own.
All
so,
right, all right.
We got a double.
We'll try to work that out.
I can't wait to see people at the show, though. We, if they want to come see Beantown, Greentown, we have the second booth when you walk in the door. It's just gonna be you can't miss it. So, we want people to come say hi. We want them to interact with us and talk about cannabis and just check out what we got going on.
So you'll be out there all weekend?
Yeah, and
You gonna
Barney's
be
gonna
there
come
too?
down.
I'll be there on Friday.
He's gonna come Friday.
On Friday
so-
night? Or Friday evening?
Friday during the day.
During the day. All
Yeah.
right. I'm going to miss you.
Yeah.
I got to work, unfortunately. I'll be down during the
Oh,
evening
bummer.
for the awards thing.
Hey,
But
everybody
yeah, we're
wants-
going to be there all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday too. So everyone from everywhere on the East Coast is going to be there
Yeah, it
next
is,
week
yeah.
at Heinz Convention Center for this New England Cannabis
Yeah, it's a
Convention.
big
Barney
deal.
Frank is going to be there Friday afternoon,
Barney.
Friday during the day. So
Yeah.
come down and check it out. We'll be there all weekend. You'll be there, Greentown,
Yeah.
Beantown.
Yeah,
Going to be
yeah.
there all weekend, Beantown, Greentown.
Maybe we'll get Barney to sign
I keep
a couple
saying
of
it
shirts.
wrong. I wrote it wrong on the thing.
You
and
wrote
I-
it wrong on the thing.
Oh
Hey,
my-
I had a question for
Go
you.
ahead.
Are we allowed to combine our Beantown, Greentown, and our Greentown, Beantown?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Votes?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
alright.
well, if they can't vote twice, but you know what I'm saying. Like, yeah.
Hey,
we'll work
whatever,
that out.
Whatever it happens to be,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, you're also nominated for our award show. Is what you're talking about.
Awesome.
But we got to go because
Yeah.
Activist Hour is coming up next.
Activist Hour.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So they're going to be coming up next at 8 p.m. and I'm sure they have a lot going on. Monica Cannon Grant, she's coming up. She was just took over a WBUR. I don't know what this thing was. A forum with I think it was like the governor of Massachusetts or the mayor, a bunch of bigwigs, and she got all the press again. And she's right. She's fighting for what's right in the city of Boston. So she's coming up next with Monica and Calvin. Stick around, Disrupt Boston. We're out of here. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
welcome.
Yeah, hey,
thank you,
thank you.
Bonnie Frank.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
Andrew
us.
Money.
Thank you.
Beantown, Greentown.
Yeah, that's
you
right,
guys
baby.
rule. Let's
All
hear
right,
it for
all right.
Beantown, Greentown.
Come smoke a joint with us.
Yeah,
Woohoo.
I will be.
All right.